Hi, I'm Graham Seed, the voice of Nigel Pargetter, and thank you so much for listening. We've been truly humbled by the response to Season 1. Our podcast will always be free, but if you're interested in making a small donation per episode, there are loads of perks you can enjoy. So why not visit us on www.patreon.com/Pargetter Triptych. If you can't, don't worry, but just tell your friends and remember to subscribe.
What is the matter with you? I only wanted to go and say hello to the hens. Jennings, it's not still that thing that happened when you were a puppy, is it? I thought it was me with the post-traumatic stress disorder. You were very, very unlucky to meet such an aggressive hen, but it was a long time ago. I know. It was your nose, wasn't it? You stay there then. Don't take any chances. I'll just lead on the fence and look over. I find hens strangely soothing. Julia, my mother, who did a lot of touring for the stage in her young days, said that they reminded her of the women on the Abergavenny bus explaining their operations to each other. I wanted to make an orchard here for the hens to scratch about in, and then we could have made cider and perry, as well as the wine. Lizzie thought it was a good idea, but as it turned out, I didn't have the time before everything. And I don't blame her at all for not doing it afterwards. She had enough to put up with. It would have been wonderful in the spring, though. So, why do I feel as though my feathers are ruffled? Because it looks like that chap Iftikhar is trying to get his foot in the door with Lizzie again. It's so hard sometimes. He seems pleasant and intelligent. He even tried to teach maths to Freddie, if you can call that intelligent. Optimistic, perhaps. I don't think he got very far. Freddie has all my difficulty with numbers. Do you remember when my father sent me off to work at the stock exchange? It's a miracle the economy of the country survived. Dreadful place. You see, in my head, I do want Lizzie to have a partner and be happy and have someone to help her through life. God knows she needs it with our children as well as Lower Loxley. But in my heart, I want to tear him limb from limb. And he's very good at cricket, which makes it worse. Jennings, they aren't taking any notice of you. They're just scratching around looking for a nice worm to eat. Hey, do you want to come here? No? Stay there then, brave boy. And it can work. Look at Liz's parents. That was second time round for Mr. Archer. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I called him Mr. Archer until the day I married Lizzie, and I still find it hard to think of him as Phil. It seems very familiar somehow. In some ways, he was rather a formal man. You wouldn't have guessed he was a farmer to look at him. Not like David, no mistaking him. Mr. Archer was still wearing a suit to go off to the farm well into the 1980s. You remember the night I accidentally got into bed with him? That's what I call a trauma, Jennings. I was looking for Shula, of course. It had been rather a good night at the Hunt Ball, and she went to bed, and I nodded off on the Brookfield sofa, and when I woke up in the small hours, I thought it might be fun to go and find her. It's a confusing old house, Brookfield. Those bedroom doors all look alike in the dark. Fortunately for all concerned, Mr. Archer was wearing very thick blue striped pyjamas. There was always a slight embarrassment between us after that, although it's an exaggeration to say I was actually cuddling up to him before I realised my mistake. Sheila loved to tell that story with embellishments until she got engaged, when she started to worry about Mark Hebden's feelings. Mine didn't seem to trouble her, or her father's. I never really found out what Jill Archer thought about it all. She was very discreet. Wise woman. I think Phil and Jill had a successful marriage, as far as anyone can tell. Poor old Grace Archer. She was hardly married for any time at all. And then she got airbrushed out of family history. Although I must admit I was interested to see if Mr. Archer would get his own grave or have to go in with her at St. Stephen's. He got his own. Which is not a surprise when you remember you don't bury yourself. Jill probably had that planned for 50 years. Come on, you terror, let's go up the lane. The hens can't get you there. Do you want a stick? Let's find you one. Here we are. Fetch. Of course, Shula's second marriage was a bit of a disaster. For all she goes around saying they've parted amicably and are staying friends, I don't think. Jennifer Archer's still on her second, isn't she? Staggering on with that Brian Aldrich through thick and thin, mainly thin. Although perhaps they get what they want out of it. And there's her sister Lillian. Her second marriage must be lost in the mists of time. I've no idea what number she's on now. 5 maybe? 6? Funny how some people are always married. But not my beautiful Lizzie. It has occurred to me that there was an element of guilt about Lizzie staying single. I don't for a minute think she had anything to do with me pitching off the roof, but I do wonder what she knew about it. Dreadful for her, with David being her brother, and he is the only person who knows the real truth of what happened up there before I fell. Even I don't know. Was it a push? Was it a slip? Sometimes the more you try to remember, the more it all recedes and gets foggy, and you just can't tell anymore. You've made it all wet now. Yes, all right, I'll throw it again. There! You should never start this game with the dog. One thing's certain, and that is whatever happens, I can't do anything about it. A very strange thing happened yesterday. I was wandering about Lower Loxley as usual, and there's a little stone barn in one of the fields. Jennings wanted to go and look. And when we went in, there was Freddie. That happens all the time, coming across him in out-of-the-way places. I think he spends his days avoiding people. But the very strange thing is that he seemed to look right at me and give me a wave, spliff in hand. Did I imagine that he was actually looking at me? Then he went back to his phone, and I stayed for a minute, and he didn't seem to be taking any notice of us, so we left. I do worry about the possibility of Freddie having a stepfather, however good at cricket. But perhaps it will all work out. No point meeting trouble, is there? Have you lost your stick? Oh, it's on top of the hedge. I'll get it for you. Come on. We'll go to the end of the lane and back before tea time, shall we? Jennings, I'm getting it. This dog has no patience. There we are. Come on then. Good boy.
Thank you for listening. If you're interested in supporting us, please check out www.patreon.com/Pargetter Triptych.